Getting hit multiple times coming out of that bike section. More drivers coming to blows. Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back here to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome back to the Formula V Weekend Warriors. This is round number 5 of this season, coming to you today from VIR. My name is Ron Maunz, and alongside me working the comms and the cams is Joshua Wilkie. Well, Josh, we head to a track that's another staple of these Formula Vs. We have seen this North version of VIR be run over the past couple of seasons. Always puts on some good racing, even though this track looks like a chicken nugget with a tapeworm sticking out at the end of it. It is still really fun and can put on some good racing as well.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely is. I love this place, honestly. The north layout, maybe not my favoriteest layout of this track. The full layout's definitely my favorite, but the north layout's pretty good. You know, you can get sometimes these sort of club or national circuits that feel very tacked on and kind of feel like a parking lot in some sections, and this one doesn't really feel like that, although there is a bit of an awkward corner. At least in my mind, it sort of adds some character to the track, Ron.
Well, thankfully here we have a lot of grass runoff areas, so they did not pave paradise and put up a parking lot. That may have been the cheesiest thing that I've said in quite some time on one of these broadcasts, but it's been a good season up to this point, and hoping to keep it rolling here for race number 5. It's going to be a good one for sure. I think we're in for a good one, and in for a good qualifying session right now with a rather stacked lineup of racers competing in this event. The usual staples, I can see Jason Shen, the standout star thus far this season, in the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors running in this race as well, and Brian Belansky in the other 225 car, the announcer for the SCCA, running here as well. He's on track with Brian Szynski, which will not be confusing at all. Fun fact for all of you, if you have been around in the Ray Esports / Weekend Warriors world for a little bit of a shorter period of time. One time, many moons ago, it was on a old Ray Esports Tuesday night show with a different broadcaster. I mixed up Brian Belansky and Brian Szynski, and I have never let it myself down as a result of all that since. So fingers crossed I'll be able to keep that all under wraps. We got Brian and his brother Dan running out here on the racetrack here for round number 5 of what's looking to be a fantastic season of races here for the Weekend Warriors. We've already had the races at Alton Park, Phillip Island, Summit Point, and Cadwell Park 1 week ago. Of course, VIR here today. Gonna be running at Jerez in 1 week's time, followed by Long Beach, the Saxon Ring, Magny-Cours, Okayama, Lime Rock on the classic layout, and Donington Park on the national configuration to bring this season to a close. So a lot of good stuff to look forward to between now and the end of the season. Coming up in a couple of months' time, we won't have to think about the end of the season until September the 6th. So you've got a summer packed full of racing action here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. Getting the first qualifying times on the board right now, Ethan Orr currently your top qualifier, as he has done for every single race up to this point here in this season. Josh, he's been untouchable when it comes to qualifying, and right now certainly proving that.
Yeah, Ethan Orr's definitely seemingly on another page here this season for sure. He's been able to capture the qualifying and led, pretty close to not led close to flag, but he's been part of that conversation every single race here so far, and we're heading into round 5, nearly halfway through our season here, and he's really been showing that he's definitely one of the fastest guys out there. We got Parvinder Ladar just behind him at the moment. Haven't been seeing a ton out of him this season. We were talking about him a few weeks ago there, hoping to see maybe him up at the front here again, as he was a few weeks ago, as Tortello just topping our boards here again. So some of the usual suspects up front. Jim Brewster, our first Masters driver there in 4th place, looking like he's putting in some pretty good times as well. And then our next S2 driver of Michelle Lynn there as well. So time's just starting to roll in now. Still got a bit of time left in qualifying, so I'm expecting to see these times kind of move around, get a little tighter before the end for sure.
Yeah, still a little bit of time left to roll as well. Tortello, the reigning champion in the Formula V Weekend Warriors, hasn't been too consistent of a presence here this season, but, we discredited him in terms of winning the championship last season, and he went on to win it by a single point over Jason Green. So I have a feeling that we cannot discredit Tortello for getting the job done in the championship once again in that number 1 car. He's got it on his car for a very good reason, but he's no longer number 1 here in qualifying. Second time's the charm for Ethan Orr to jump up to a 141.670. Pretty good lap time from him. Tortello just a little bit farther back, 0.202 of a second is a gap between the front two at the front of this field. And it's Felix Samoa is running at your top 3 at the present moment, a top 3 comprised of all Spec 1 racers. He's gotten 3 wins up to this point in the season in the category and 2 wins overall. Of course, Andrew Love playing spoiler in race number 2 of the season at Phillip Island, grabbing the overall win as a Spec 2 racer. And it was Felix Samoa finishing P2 in that race. I think I probably said the number 2 about 15,000 times in the span of a couple of seconds there. So I'll cool it off a little bit and just let you know that's been a fantastic season up to this point. Lots of different storylines heading through this season. That Spec 2 category, incredible to follow as well, with 3 different winners in that class, along with 2 different winners in Spec 2 and 3 different winners in Masters as well. But here in this 30-minute long race that we have coming up, first got tackle qualifying, and these drivers are still doing it. Ethan Orr, top qualifier at the moment. Auburn Ladar, still very impressive. He was actually your pole sitter 3 times already here in the Spec 2 category. Grabbed the pole at Alton Park, Summit Point, and Cadwell Park, but hasn't started any better than 4th overall thus far this season. Looking like he may turn that script around a bit, as he's currently qualified to join Ethan Orr on the front row.
Yeah, for sure. We're getting a little tighter up there at the front. Definitely. Ladar looks like he's got some speed today. Toro looks like he's struggling a little bit, but we know, you're mentioning before, he took the season by 1 point. Toro's the kind of driver that goes out there, does exactly what he needs to do. If there's days where he's not feeling so good, he's going to probably extract just as many points as he needs to and then call it a day, sort of thing. So definitely wouldn't count him out halfway through the season here. As we look at Antonio Reese, hopping in a new time. Don't think he got any better there. Yeah, this place is a little bit difficult for sure. Not maybe quite as draft heavy as some of the tracks we've been to before, Ron. So I would imagine it's a little more of a driver's track. Qualifying maybe a little bit more important than some other tracks are. There is a pretty long front straight there to try to get it done into T1, and we're going to see it over and over again. I think like we did last time, but maybe not quite as draft heavy as some of them. As we see this right-hander here. Not an easy corner to get right. I was mentioning, tracks that kind of feel a little like a parking lot. This section coming over the hill right there feels a little parking lot-y. The first couple times you come through this section is a little bit odd, very blind coming through here as well. But once you get it, there is a pretty good flow to it. And although it is a bit of a difficult section, I think most of the drivers have it pretty nailed down today.
Incidentally, that's a spin from Antonio down into roller coaster. Yeah, I think he did miss like a little bit too soon there. The commentator's jinx coming down to strike Antonio for the first time in about 50 years. It's not commentator's jinx coming from me. I'll take that as a W. But that midfield section heading out of turn number 7 all the way down into turn 14 of roller coaster, it feels vaguely similar to the end of the lap at Cadwell Park 1 week ago. That slalom section, as I like to call it. Super tough to try and nail down. You've got so many blind turns all through that part of the racetrack as well. So we'll have to see those racers try and master that here in qualifying and mastered in the race coming up as well, which will certainly be a draft fest with that massively long start-finish straight away. Outside of that, the only long flat-out blast that these racers have, if you could even call it that, is a section between the exit of Snake down into the uphill turn of turn number 7, the other awkward turn, as you called it, Josh, to cut into the infield of this layout. Outside that, though, you're pretty much constantly turning. So it will be a test of these drivers, a test of their cars, and a test of their skill as well to try and master this. Ethan Orr, still the master of this qualifying session right now. Parvin Ladar, top of the Spec 2. Masters currently has a trio of cars running nose to tail. Antonio Reese, Alan DeGassis, and Jörg Mani currently qualified P7, P8, and P9 respectively. And their lap times are extraordinarily close as well. Reese at a 142.047, DeGassis at a 0.056, and Jörg Mani making up the end of that trio at only 0.071. So that is insanity for 3 drivers to be covered that close. Have we Hello, Mr. Wilkie.
You know what? I've done the muted microphone thing. Yeah, you're right, Ron. We're used to things being pretty close together in the V's, but This particular one's very close together, as you can see here, and that's always just going to make sure that we have a nose-to-tail race going into T1 every single lap. I would imagine we're gonna have 3 wide, 4 wide, maybe even 5 wide here going into T1, and we always have a pretty spectacular last lap, which is kind of going to be the key to the race today. Really, is just being able to stay alive, stay in that fight, stay in that hunt in the front. For a podium, and if you can be there, in the last couple laps, then you have a chance to do it. But obviously, if you wreck it early on, you're not going to be there to have that chance. So definitely got to make sure you keep all 4 on the road, keep your nose clean today, and be there at the end.
When you said that staying alive is important here, I was going to make a reference to the Bee Gees song, but after that Paved Paradise and Put Up a Parking Lot comment from me earlier on in this show, I don't want to drop any more musical references. Otherwise, people think I have the faintest idea as to what I'm talking about when it comes to music. So I'll swiftly and abruptly move on and let you know that Nate Colascio just jumped his way up to P3 here in this qualifying session, a 1:41.805. That's a rather commanding lap time from the driver of the number 8 car to jump his way up into third. Not a lot of cars left out there on the racetrack, must be said. Here's Byron DeBallo right now. We followed him heading his way off through this opening sector of this lap in the 396 machine and skating a little bit as he heads his way down into NASCAR bend of turn number 3. Very tough section to try and nail down this. Really have to hit your marks as best as you possibly can. Keep that momentum rolling. And here was that snake section that I was referring to a couple of moments ago. From here all the way down into turn number 7, it is the second longest flat out section of this lap, and let's savor it as we still have it. Still flat out, and now he's on the brakes. That is not a long break at all for these racers, so frankly they are going to be tested for sure here in this 30-minute long race that we have coming up. But the action has cooled off a teeny tiny bit out there on the racetrack here in qualifying. We first want to let you know that today's broadcast of the Formula V Weekend Warriors here on SMB is brought to you by our pal Mr. Guido Fox Marzuki. Thank you, Guido, for making this broadcast possible, and hopefully I won't give him too much of a hard time during those Weekend Warriors shows tomorrow here on SMB. But I think it'll also give us a good opportunity to take a look at the championship points standings heading into this, the 5th round of this championship. Already a third of the season in our rear view mirror, and we've started to see some racers really start to prove themselves as being strong contenders. We'll take a look at Spec 1 here first, where Felix Samoas has jumped out into a nice lead at the moment. 374 points is his current total. Josh Justice slot in P2, which is rather fascinating. Josh, don't really see him too much run in these Formula Vs, but he has been a consistent force thus far in the season. Yet to grab a win, but he's been running strongly and running consistently as well, but no one's really challenging Felix at the moment. Ethan Orr slotted in 3rd, Nate Colascio in 4th, with your reigning champion of Tortullo rounding out your top 5 in Spec 1. I'll move off now to Spec 2, and Josh, how about you take a look at the Spec 2 points?
Yeah, sure. I love the Spec 2 drivers here. So we have Parvinder Ladar actually leading in with 299 points in Spec 2. Michelle Lynn not too far behind that. Andrew Love with 253 just behind Michelle Lynn. And Jason Grider in 5th with, I believe that's 235. And then Brian Hansen in 5th with 148. So pretty close for the top 4 drivers there for sure. Parvinder Ladar leading, I believe, for the first time in WW history here at the moment.
Yeah, it's rather fascinating considering that up to this point in this season, Parvinder only has 1 class win. I think it's down to a bit of inconsistency from Michelle Lynn and Andrew Love actually skipping out on the 3rd round of the championship at Summit Point a couple of weeks ago. Here's our look at Masters, where Antonio Reese is up at the front as it stands currently. 2 wins as well, winning at Phillip Island and Cadwell Park. And the races that he has run in, he has been very, very good. Last time out as well at Cadwell Park, he was able to finish that race P2 overall. And a reminder, folks, these drivers are scored not based off their class position, but based off their overall finishing position in these races. So a P2 result out there on the road will mean exactly the same when it comes to the points for a Spec 1, Spec 2, or Masters racer. And Antonio Reese has used that to his full advantage. 289 points a gap at the moment. And not the gap, the current total that he has at the moment. A 289 point gap would be rather dominant, but hey, he was quick in the other formula here in the Weekend Warriors world, the Formula Fords last season. Let's see what he can do in the Formula Vs here this season. Jim Brewster slot in second, your reigning champion. But with all that taken care of when it comes to the championship points, let's take a look at the starting grid, where it's going to be Ethan Orr starting from the pole, Parvin Ladar in the Bada Bing car, getting the move done to jump his way up into P2 for the starting grid. Nate Colacio will start this race in third. Felix Samoas will line up alongside in P4. It'll be Tortello in fifth. Jason Chen will start this race in P6. Antonio Reitz, your top qualifying Masters, in seventh. Alan Degassis in eighth. Jörg Mani in ninth, with Michelle Lynn, Series admin, rounding out your top 10.
Yeah, and then we have our Masters driver of Jim Brewster in P11. Brian Straczynski is going to bring up P12. And P13, we have Rob Wright. P14, Donald Stroud. I don't think we've seen him in a few races, so good to have him back. Jan Straczynski in 15th. Jonathan Paget in 16th. Kurt Nunez in 17th. Scott Brayler is in 18th. Jason Greider in 19th. Joshua Justice, Weekend Warrior staple, in 20th. And I think I'll just finish them off here. Brian Hansen in 21st. Nick Tullo in 22nd. 23rd is Brian DeBello. And Russell Telker is in 24th. Brian Belinsky in last place, 25th, bringing up the rear.
So those are your starters for this race that we have coming up. 30 minutes in length. We're expecting a fun one. Saw a brief connection issue for Brian Belansky a little bit earlier on, but I believe he has rejoined the race, so no issues there at the present moment. Well, I'll touch on the storylines, though, from qualifying. That was the fourth pole position thus far this season, and the highest starting spot for a Spec 2 racer thus far for Parvin Ladar. That's P2 on the starting grid. That'll be a very good result for him. Antonio Reis, this is going to be his... this will actually be his second pole position in a row, and second pole position from the season in Masters, and for the fifth straight week, sweeping out the other qualifying thus far, it is once again Ethan Orr at the command of this field, as we're about to get this race started here in just a few moments time. A race we're expecting some drama, we're expecting some aggression, and we're also expecting some fantastic racing as usual here in the Formula V Weekend Warriors. It's been a good first third of this season. Let's see how the second third is, and we kick it off right about now as that pace car has made the turn to come down pit lane. The field now back in the hands of our pole sitter as the green flag's out and the drivers are on their way. Very early jump from Ethan Orr, jumped out to the outside heading down that start-finish straight, but as they had their way down into turn number one of Horseshoe, look at some drivers already running off into the dirt. Tortello deciding to risk it for the biscuit here in the early stages. Down to turn number one, it's Tullo and Parvin Ladar battling for P2 and P3 as the drivers go three wide, a little bit farther in the back. Really dicey as they had their way into three for the very first time.
Yep, pretty clean through T1 here so far. We're looking lots of puffs of smoke, but no skidding quite yet. So everybody's looking pretty under control. We're starting to single file out already. What a massive group of cars we have today there. It looks like a lot. Oh, and it looks like we have at least two cars off there. I believe that may have been Jörg Mani and Scott Brayler. Russell Telker, sorry, and Jörg Mani, unfortunately, off the road there. We'll have to go back and have a quick look at that as we head into our first kind of awkward corner here of the lap, and it looks like Ethan Orr way out front.
Yeah, so Ethan Orr trying to pull out to as big of a lead as he can. You know, a gap like that, it may seem like a vast yawning chasm, and compared to some of the other gaps that we've seen with drivers bump drafting each other in a massive NASCAR super speedway-esque train, that is a pretty big gap, but that can disappear in the blink of an eye. I guarantee you that as they head their way down to turn number one, Ethan Orr is not going to hold on to an 0.8 of a second lead. In fact, he may not even be in the lead period. Jörg Mani getting off to a really poor start. He's dropped down to P24, right in front of Russ Telker, who I think has decided to call it a day. He's already towed back to pit lane, so I think that will be the first retiree from this race. 24 drivers still left out there on the racetrack. And we're following one of the drivers in the midfield. That right there was Nick Tullo, who we were following a couple of moments ago. His son Tor currently slotted in P3. Ethan Orr leads the very first lap, and he's looking to try and get into victory lane as side by side with Tullo and Ladar down into turn number one. That's Tullo making his way up the spot now. Nate Colacio looking for a move around the outside. Samoas nearly ends up in the grass through turn number one, but Ethan Orr, despite the clean sweep of the poles thus far this season, both overall and in class, yet to get a win. So I think he'll look to try and change that here today.
Yeah, I would imagine so. It's pretty rough having all that pace out there and then just kind of not being able to bring it home at the end. It's really hard to do, obviously, in these Vs with the draft. Sometimes being out front just basically makes you a target for everybody else, and it becomes very difficult to win a race from the lead. But he's doing a pretty good job of holding it off, at least for now. Like you said, don't think this is going to last too long. We'll have Tor most likely pulling into first place here pretty soon, and then we'll go back and forth from there, but it's really hard to tell from here on out. Pretty good group of cars in the front here. We have gapped out a little bit. You can see there we got a pretty big group of about 6 cars, I believe, 6 or 7 cars, and then that's going to go back to Michelle Lynn, and then back a little bit more. We're going to find Jim Brewster and a couple other drivers there as well. So we're starting to kind of pack drive here a little bit. Josh Justice looking up that inside. Very opportunistic move there from Josh Justice. Great move. Love making passes into that spot. Not an easy one people don't usually suspect, and he got that one done.
And I will say, talking about this racetrack in reference to some of the gaps that we have seen throughout a somewhat decent chunk of this field, this is one of those racetracks where you can pull a bit of a gap, considering the only major draft zone is that massively long start-finish straightaway. But that was not a drafting move from Josh Justice. That was just a nice dive off into roller coaster of turn number 14. Gets it done in a rather commanding way. And when I reference turn number 14, I'm going to raise this as well. Josh, I'm not sure if you've ever seen the iRacing track map here, as there's a move from Tullo to jump into the race lead. The iRacing track map does not label any turn around this VIR North configuration as turn number 13. We go straight from 12A into 14 and 14A. And no, they do not skip out on turn numbers based off of turns with numbers and letters, as right after 14A, you've got turn 15. So they just skipped out on turn 13. I mean, it is a superstitious number for many. I guess the people in charge of numbering the track map here in the sim must have had some sort of bad case of triskaidekaphobia.
Yeah, it looks like that's a pretty interesting one, actually. I'd never noticed that before. They've decided to just leave that out, I guess, and well, I guess that's their decision to do so, and maybe a little bit less cursed for it, but that's the way it goes, I suppose. We got Tor out front here again, so like we said, you know, it didn't take we're on lap 3 now, and Tor is out front. It's going to be between him and Ethan Orr here for a little bit. It looks like Parvinder's struggling a little bit for pace to be able to get up to the back of these two drivers here. We'll see if he can't use that draft to try to attach himself and then find the line that he seems to be missing through the other part of the track here, or perhaps he's being held up a little bit by Colasillo as we're going to go too wide here again. We're starting to pack drive quite a bit. You can see that big gap between this group of drivers and then Michelle Lynn, I believe it's Donald Strout, and then after that we have Joshua Justice and a few other drivers. But pretty clean up here at the front so far. Some moves being made. Nothing too crazy yet though.
Yeah, we are seeing these. Oh boy, let me try that one again. We are seeing these racers, second tries to charm there, start to go for some moves, but we're also seeing these racers decide, you know what, time to take it a little bit easy. Let's turn down the wick a little bit. Let's just get through this race as quickly as we possibly can. Parvin Ladar, he's still running very, very strong as it stands right now. Currently holding on to P5. We'll say something bad has gone on involving Jason Shen. He's dropped down to P21, so not a good start for the driver of the 814 car at all. But Ladar still holds on to that spec to lead P5 as well, and running through this train right now, which includes a top 7. So unless some sort of major drama goes on involving him, I think he'll be running rather smooth. As we take a look in a moment involving Jason Chen, this is right towards the start of this race, down into turn number 3 of NASCAR Bend, into turn 4 of Left Hook, and let's see. Oh no, oh interesting, I'm not sure. Oh, contact being made for sure. I'm not entirely sure who that was that clobbered into the side of him, but Jason Shen, oh, and more dramas they had all through there. That, I believe, was a moment for Russ Delco.
So that was Manny.
That car.
Yeah, so I got it a little bit wrong. Yeah, I got it a little bit wrong in the beginning there, a little bit confusing there, that it was actually Chen and I believe Manny who got together, and then it was Russell who spun as well, just unrelated. So unfortunately a little bit misleading there, but we'll have a quick look maybe at what exactly happened to Manny with Chen there, and then hopefully that will kind of figure things out for us a little bit here. I think Russell Telker just kind of spun on his own up track a little bit. We're going to see them make a bit of contact there in between the trees. man, all by himself. And then Mani just got caught up in it, Ron. Unfortunately, took a couple other people out as well.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate for that moment for Monty. He's dropped down like a rock. Of course, Russ Telker had that spin a little bit farther up the road, and he's decided to call it quits here in this race. I think there may have been some drama involving Brian Stasinski. He just lost out a couple spots, now slotted in lucky number P13. As we take a look at a moment involving Brian Belansky in a very nice Benetton tribute scheme down in through Hog Pen, and unfortunately there, his car handling more like a pig than anything else, slides off the track into the grass. He's gonna go, thankfully, with the uphill nature of that section of the grass, he stops before he hits the barrier, but he's still dropped down, currently slotted P24 at the present moment. Tough stuff for him. In front of the field though, Ethan Orr still holding on to a comfortable lead right now. I say comfortable, 0.4 of a second. As long as you're in the lead, you're somewhat comfortable. I will say it's probably more comfortable having a 5-second gap than a 0.5 of a second gap, but no, you gotta take the wins when you can get them, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta, for sure, that gap, you're gonna watch it kind of grow and recede, and then grow a little again, and then recede, and you just kind of have to be cool about it. You just have to kind of let it happen and not worry too much about it. Be there at the end. If you get too kind of hot under the collar right now, as we're going 3 wide, Tor on the inside into the pit lane or into the pit exit, and he's going to make it happen there into T1 pretty easily. So, I think that's less of a desperate move. Almost making contact with Felix Samoes on the outside there. Good driving from everybody, but that might look a little panicky, it might look a little shocking, but really all Tor's trying to do there is keep the momentum of everybody up. He's got about a bunch of momentum, he's got a slingshot, he wants to use it, and if everybody kind of lets it happen, it actually benefits the entire group of cars. I'm not really sure that's how it worked out there, but they didn't really slow down too much either, so well done from the drivers at the front, and pretty exciting stuff there from Tor as well. See if we can't get an onboard of that.
Yeah, pretty nice move there as Jörg Monty has made the call to come down pit lane, so things going from bad to worse for the driver, the 925. There's Tullo holding on to that race lead still. Let's take a look at the moment about how he was able to make up some of these spots, taking that run, taking the momentum, running off into the painted stuff there. Very similar to the scene of Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello at the Hungaro ring many moons ago in Formula 1. I will say, though, I don't think Tortolo was saying that anybody should pick up a black flag for that, though. So one
wasn't forcing them into a wall, if I remember correctly there. That was one of the more wild F1 moves intentional squeezes I think I've ever seen in F1. It was pretty shocking, actually, especially on a unbelievably nice man and driver of Ruben Barrichello's there. I think it was a little bit shocking of him to do that, but yeah, kind of reminiscent. I actually saw something, one of the races we were doing last week very similar too. It seems to be the week of squeezing people into the pit lane, but we got Felix Moez kind of trying that line as well. Not quite as far into the pit lane, not quite as dramatic as Tor, but he's going to be able to actually hold on to the lead down the straightaway here. So not too bad on Felix Moez there. When you're leading this race, one of the kind of things you can employ is not necessarily going slow at the front, but sort of trying to push the second place driver into the third place driver, into the fourth place driver, and sometimes that can kind of get you a bit of a gap, and I wonder sometimes if that's what's going on through their head as well. They're just playing a little bit of games with each other out there.
Oh yeah, those mental games. You can see these drivers run it, and you ask a driver like, oh yeah, were you doing that just to get in the head of some of your other racers? And they're like, no, I wouldn't do that. They would do that. I've had enough conversations with one of my closest friends, my buddy Robbie, who I raced with for quite some time. I think we essentially ran together in competition from 2016 all the way up until 2022. Him and I have been friends for many moons. I remember about a year ago, now that I've been retired from the karts for about 2 years, I remember him and I just sat down, had a conversation about all the mind games we would play with each other in the karts. And even though it's sim racing, and even though the Weekend Warriors is such a tight-knit community, community is one thing, but you still want to win. And these racers, they're not going to be running each other off the racetrack. They're just going to try and screw with each other, which, all's fair in love and racing. What can you say?
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say, there's mental games to be built, when you're driving, and there's also other mental games that you kind of build pictures of the drivers around you and what they might be thinking, and it's really easy to get, as we're going to go 4 wide here, Coliseo up the middle, and they're going to keep pushing it here too. They're going to keep pushing it 4 wide to go 3 wide, and Coliseo is actually going to make that one work out. They've sorted themselves out you know, these 4 or 5 drivers, 6 drivers here at the front have been doing this for a while. They've been back and forth and switching positions at the front many courses, many tracks over the course of a few seasons now, and they should be able to get it right like that, shouldn't they, Ron? They should be able to sort themselves out into T1 till the end of the race and then sort it out. So I'm expecting to see them be be nice and clean till the end of the race. Although it looks somewhat frenetic at times, there's a lot of calculation going on there as to what's going on to try to keep that pack of drivers ahead of everybody else. But back to my point quickly there, it's really easy to build a mental picture or an inner monologue of the driver you're against, that somehow he's wronging you, or he must have done that to slow me down, or whatever you can build in your head. And it's very, it's not a good idea to do that a lot of the time. And I wonder sometimes if that's why it's so easy to get caught up in your own head and make a decision, or make a bad decision, I should say. So that mental game can definitely go back and forth. You kind of have to rein yourself in at times as well.
And I will say there was also a moment involving Donald Stout in the 970 car. I can see that he spent a significant amount of time at down pit lane. I believe he is back out there on the racetrack. Spent well over 50 seconds.
There's a couple incidents here.
A minute and a half here with down pit lane. Yeah, let's take a look at this. There was a series of moments. The driver 960s running right in front of Dan Szynski here in this first moment. That's a spin down to the turn. Now that's Michelle Lynn, my apologies, running right to the front. I need to update my paint schemes because clearly they're working against me here today. Here's Nate Colicio with a moment as well here in the number 8 car, running up towards the front of the field, and look at that, splitting the difference. They went 4 wide down to turn number 1. Stout's off the track a little bit farther up the road, trying to get out of harm's way. They risked it and went 4 wide down into turn number 1. I will say, if these racers do any more stuff like that between now and the end of this race coming up in about 16 minutes time, I'm perfectly all right with it, under the condition they could probably pay for any sort of vocal cord damage that gets done to me as a result.
Yeah, definitely. There's they're testing it up front there for sure. It's getting a little bit frenetic now. We just as we see Byron just edge of adhesion again. Really easy to do. There's a couple drivers out there pretty new to the series here. I think it's going to take a little bit more practice to get the car nailed down. Really easy to loop. That's probably the easiest rookie mistake to make in this car is to loop it just like that. I know because I've done it a bunch of times. I'm definitely a rookie in this car. That looked real close between Tor and Ethan. It is starting to get a little bit more dramatic here for sure, Ron, as they're catching some lap traffic.
Yeah, we do have the lap traffic a little bit farther up the road. I was just going to say how in these races, I think I was saying this right before there was a 12-car pileup a couple of weeks ago at Summit Point, but you got these races that end up going on in different phases. I feel like we're in phase 1, where the drivers at the front of the field still running in their own nice little neat and tightly knit pack. Then something bad happens, and something nearly bad happened there. That was Antonio Reese with the jump scare of a lifetime. They were 3 wide, heading their way down the start-finish straightaway, off into horseshoe of turn number 1. Look at that Samoa's very deep on the brakes, trying to race with Alan DeGassis. That's a battle for the Masters lead at the present moment. We'll say Corbin Lador has also dropped down out of this pack. He's currently slotted P7 at the present moment. Just got past that lap car that we saw those competitors deal with a few moments ago, but that could have been absolute disaster. They had their way off through the section of the track, and look at Antonio. It definitely had his cage rattled a little bit as we saw that lap car. Not entirely sure who that was, heading their way down that start-finish straightaway as those leaders caught him up. I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, that may have been the 255 of Belansky. We'll have to double-check that, though, as we take a look at that 3-wide action down into turn at number 1. And they were still 3 wides. They headed their way off through the apex. Nate Colicio got shuffled out a little bit as a result of all that. Actually dropped down to 4th.
Yeah, that was a pretty tense moment there for Antonio as well. He's able to kind of keep it together there for sure. I believe it was Donald. I believe it was I could be wrong, but I believe it was Donald Stewart. It may have been Brian Belinsky there who actually hit the brakes on the straightaway to kind of try to let them by quickly, and there was a bit of a snake happening behind him and almost had a massive accident with two drivers. So it's always a good idea just to keep going. Don't hit the brake. Don't try to be nice like that. Or else sometimes you're going to end up with a car up your rear end for sure. But he was able to get away with it there, and then almost made a pass actually into T1 right after it. But Antonio Reese having to do a bunch of wheel manning there on that lap.
Yeah, that was a wild moment, a lot of wild moments in the span of just a couple of moments here. These racers, they definitely know how to turn up the wick a little bit as we could take a look. That was DeGas's perspective of all that. You could just see it in the rearview mirror of Alan DeGas's car. Antonio Reese having to dart around. That could have ended in disaster. There's been many a major collision in real life that have gone on as a result of very similar shenanigans like that, what we saw a few moments ago. And let's take a look at a moment that happened a couple of moments ago involving Antonio Reese. This was a little bit before all the stuff went down the start-finish straightaway as we take a look and follow him at the tail end of this pack. So he heads his way through Hog Pen of turn number 17, one of the most enjoyable corner names to say in the entire world of motorsports. Heading his way through there onto the start-finish straightaway, and you can see that's DeGas's. Whoa, there we go.
Yeah, totally blind there for a little bit, for sure. You wonder sometimes, too, you know, if I was DeGas's, you're like, I'm going to try to make this as late as I can. Because if I get it right, you might just end up without a competitor behind you. But I'm not sure that's what he was trying to do there. But that's certainly what I'm sure it felt like for Antonio Reese. But some good reflexes to make sure that he did not fall victim to that there, and able to fight another day. Did lose a little bit of time for it, though, and kind of a little bit of touch with this lead pack. But I think we're still in it for a fight here, and we probably 6 drivers could still take this one by the end. We are getting pretty close to the end here, about 11, 12 minutes left, and I bet you we're going to go 3 wide again into T1 here, Ron.
Yeah, I will say as well, it looks like Alan DeGastis has lost the draft of the 4 drivers right in front who are nearly going 4 wide yet again. You know, I say that they lose the draft, but then they have moments like that, and a small little twitch up for any of them will bring them back up into that fight. Yeah, you can see that gap briefly dipping back below a second as we still have Felix Samoas and Tortello side by side. Samoas maybe got to eyeball a move on Ethan Orr as well. Really, if anybody involved in this battle doesn't need to risk it for the biscuit and get these moves done, it is Felix Samoas. He's had a fantastic season up to this point. Really doesn't have to play with fire, but he's a racer. He still wants to get those wins. He still wants to get those results. And hey, as much as he has a massive championship gap at the moment, a humongous championship gap just has a better ring to it if you're a racing driver. We take a look at a battle involving Brian Hansen, Jason Chen, and Scott Brailer. That's a battle for P16, 17, and 18 at the moment. All 3 of these drivers are Spec 2 competitors, still trying to run their own race as it stands currently. Kind of in a pack all by their lonesome, as it's about 6 seconds farther up the road to find Nick Tullo, and about 4 seconds farther back to find the 376 car of Jonathan Paget. So looks like these racers will be involved in their own battle between now and the very end. And there's Jonathan Paget right now running all by his lonesome in P19. That could be a rather odd position to be in, but no driver is feeling more lonely, I think, right now than Brian DeBallo in the other 396. He is basically running on his own island, Gilligan's Island right now. DeBallo's Island, I guess, would probably be the more fitting name.
Well, as we're going to into the pit exit again there for Tor, so I think maybe Ethan saw that one coming this time, and he actually kind of pushed Tor a little bit more into that area, kind of compromising his line into T1 from the outside, making it a bit shallow for him. He's not able to get as good of a run out of the corner as we see. Definitely Antonio Reese and DeGassis are back in this fight again. No problem here. They should be mixing it up with these lead drivers pretty soon, and you don't want to count either one of them out for a podium today either. But that was looked a little bit froggy there at the front, didn't it, Ron? That was kind of scary looking.
Got a lot of froggy drivers at the front of the field. We're just waiting to see who's going to rip it first. That was a big moment as they headed their way down into turn number 1. Let's take a look at some more drama involving Samoas and Ethan Orr down into left hook of turn number 4. Much like a left hook right to your face, it can really hit you hard, and that's turn number 5 there. Thankfully, everybody made it through that section clean. You know, we've seen this happen before in these races, Josh, around this exact same racetrack. Drivers go side by side all through the first sector, and with the bend in the road, I mean, the run from turn 1 through into turn 2 and the run from 2 into 3, not straight at all. These drivers are having to turn through that section all the time. We saw, I believe it was our colleague here at Slow Motion Broadcasting, Mr. Adam Thompson, end up getting struck by falling anvil as a result of a moment coming out of turn number 1, side by side in 3 wide action. Really doesn't work through that section of the track, but it's the main spot that's conducive to side by side racing, and these drivers will have to risk it if they want to get some moves done side by side with Oren Samoa. As Tolo maybe got to try and split the difference. Will he split the difference? No, back into the pit exit he goes. E-I-E-I-E-I-O, that cone on the inside, getting some bad war flashbacks every single time that car comes up to it. 3 wide yet again. Now Tolo looking to jump into second. Samoa's though. Yeah, actually no, that was Antonio Reese. My apologies. Samoa is still holding on to it, but Antonio Reese really trying to wheel it down the inside through turn number 1. Actually made contact with himself and Nate Colicio in the act of that.
Yeah, that was some pretty good driving there up front for sure. Looks like we had a bit of an incident with Donald Stroud here into T1. I'm going to guess it's one of those braking a bit too late and looping it here. Let's see. Really easy to do into this corner. And yeah, pretty good to control it there too and not completely loop the car, but really easy to do into T1 there. Get a little bit too much steam into it. It looks like Brian Straczynski and Joshua Justice are having a battle here, and it may have gone south. I was just about to mention that Joshua Justice was our fastest gainer today at about 11 positions he had gained, but it looks like maybe he's gotten caught up with Brian Straczynski here. We'll have a quick peek at it. Hopefully they're still racing with each other here, but it looks like something's going to happen into T1 here, Ron.
And let's see as we follow these racers down into turn number 1. You can see Straczynski punching that hole in the air in front of Justice. Oh no, that was the lightest bit of contact. Straczynski with a pop-up in the air. You know, that's not the worst moment I've ever seen from Josh Justice down to turn number 1. I remember one time in a Spec Racer Ford race, he ended up flipping after hitting the grass, so thankfully still kept it on all 4. Straczynski popped up onto 2, but thankfully still kept it going in a somewhat straight line, even with that half spin. 3 wide though between Tolo, Or, and Samoa as a game of leapfrog continuing with these racers. As look at that, that's 5 cars covered by just about nothing. Nate Colicio really deciding to turn up the wick at the present moment. The driver, the number 8, always seems to be the maestro with these draft races, but I think if there's anybody to
he's off the road.
End the disaster. Colicio and Reese, it still ends off with an off-track moment for Colicio. That could have been so much worse as he and the driver, the 914 of Reese, made contact.
Yeah, he definitely real good heads-up driving there. He saw that coming and he decided to go into the grass to avoid it. And if he wouldn't have done that, they would both be on the side of the track back there right now. So that was definitely some heads-up driving from Colicio, and a little bit questionable from the other driver there. I mean, he probably just pushed wide and didn't really have much of a choice about it, but he definitely ran Colicio up into the grass off that one. Really good heads-up driving to miss it. We're definitely getting a little bit more aggressive up here in this front pack here with not too many minutes left, just under 5 minutes now left on the clock, so it's only going to be a few more laps, and this is when you're going to have to try to sort it out. Pretty big group of cars to try to sort it out here by the end, Ron, so I'm expecting some fireworks for sure.
Yeah, I'm expecting aggression. I'm expecting these racers to really turn up the wick, and hey, they've been doing that for a decent amount of laps up to this point. One battle that I do want to keep a slight bit of attention on, probably not my main attention. I think we should definitely stay locked on this on these cameras with this fight going on. They're 3 wide yet again between Colicio blinking in and out pretty badly there. That's going to really dice up this battle. There's nothing worse than going side by side in an open wheel car with a driver that's blinking in and out like a UFO, rapidly abducting them. Contact there. Felix Samoa and Antonio Reese. Samoa's with a half spin. That car looked like it snapped around on a dime, like it shifted down to reverse midway through the turn. That was unusual. That had to have been contact because it looked like a puppeteer just grabbed that car's strings and spun it around.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of missed that one personally there. I just saw the spin happening as I just saw Antonio Reese here, and I believe that was Alan DeGassis went axle to axle there and were able not to climb each other's tires and have a big accident. So things are definitely getting a little bit aggressive out there. Let's see if we can't go back and find out exactly what did happen to Felix Samoas here on.
And let's see, he held on to the lead every now and then when Colicio blanked out there. I wonder if it was potentially, Yeah, exactly what I thought.
Contact.
I was expecting it to be some weird contact in iRacing, kind of running the numbers and putting 2 and 2 together and getting 47. That's exactly what happened. He headed his way down into turn number 1. Samoa's a little bit of a tap there, and as a result, he just spins around like a top. There you can see that 8 car popping back into existence, moving back into view down to the turn, and let's see contact being made, and around he goes.
Yeah, he kind of got lucky there, actually, with another driver kind of booted him back straight again and didn't really seem to take any damage either, nor did Reese, as he's actually pulling out here for a pass. It looks like Tor's going to take that inside line again that he's so fond of here. Nobody's covering that one off yet. I think I'd have started covering that off by now, but perhaps new driver hasn't noticed that's the move yet, as he's going to be able to make it happen on the inside here. Pretty tenuous stuff there. Antonio Reese going to hang it wide, be able to hold on to that one, I think, but yeah, we only have a few minutes left here, and I have a feeling that T1 and that line into the pit exit there is going to become, I have a feeling it's going to get used on the last lap.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're going to see these racers basically use any part of this track that just so happens to be paved. I will say, though, as a result of that drama down into turn number 1 and 2 has caused this pack to break up a little bit. Ethan Orr and Nate Colascio running P1 and P2, about 2/10 between each other as they head their way down into turn at number 7 for one of the last times here in this race. Antonio Reese about a second back. Parvin Lador still leads in Spec 2. I was going to mention how if he can keep it clean, he'll still hold on to it, but Michelle Lynn there, that 4.5 seconds back, would be there within striking distance in case there is some sort of extracurricular drama to go on involving the driver of the 432 car right in front, the 215 of Michelle Lynn. Philly Strong right now in 8th, keeping her own at the present moment, but there's not a lot of time left to go to try and make up some moves. You can see Kurt Nunez and Jim Brewster rounding out your top 10 here presently, but we're coming to the white flag this time by one more lap of racing action, and I think it'll be a 2-horse fight unless these two come to blows. It's Ethan Orr and Nate Colascio running in first and second, but Colascio gonna try and get that run down this start-finish stretch off into turn number 1. Colascio won at the last. Oh, that's the gases with a huge moment off the track. He's probably gonna hit the wall. Very thankful that there is a huge amount of grass runoff on the outside there. I think it was himself and Felix Samoa is coming to blows. Parvin Ladorga say thank you very much. I'll take P6. The gas is dropping back, but Antonio Reese will pick up the Masters win unless something major goes on involving him. Let's see this moment. Oh boy. Contact being made, bump drafting in a Formula V works about as well as mixing tuna and cyanide. So really, not the best in the world there, if I am being completely honest. The gas is still trying to get his bearing straight. Slot in P8. I think Felix Samoa is rightfully so going to let him by. That was just a huge misjudgment there. And I think a little bit netcode potentially as well. Oh no. That was contact for sure. Nose cone to rear drivetrain unit and all of that. But as that drama's been going on, I want to jump back up to the front of the field where Ethan Orr still leads over Nate Colascio. Colascio, your winner a couple of weeks ago at Summit Point, looking to go back-to-back on the major drafting tracks that we visited thus far this season. Ethan Orr, on the other hand, despite the fact he's had a clean sweep of the poles, he's yet to get a single mark in that win column here in Season 3 of 2025. But he's not in the good spot. He's going to be the one punching the hole in the air, and Nate Colascio going to enjoy that draft as they head their way through turn number 17. Hog pen for the final time. Colascio and Orr both going to arc it strong. He really did not get a fantastic exit there. Colascio got a good one. They're pretty much evenly marked, heading their way down that start-finish stretch off into the line. Colascio gonna bit him at the line by 11 hundredths of a second. Bravo. 11,000, I should say. Holy cow.
Yeah, that might be the closest one we've had, I think. That was, wow, I thought for sure he was going to be able to hold it off there, but just barely doesn't hold it off, Ron, unfortunately. Or going to have to take second fiddle again after all of that effort and leading so well, so many laps. And unfortunately going to have to take second fiddle to Nate Colascio this time. But great run from Colascio. Great run from everybody out there, actually. Pretty clean race. Not an easy track to sort everybody out on, and it looks like we've done a really good job of that today.
Kind of brilliant race from all of these drivers up and down the grid. I think Brian Belansky, no, he has already taking the checkered flag. I thought he was out of fuel there. I thought we were going to have to award the Thompson Trophy. But thankfully, I think we can get away with this race without having to worry about that. But Nate Coliseo getting his second win. And as a result of all that, it's not going to be a change at the front of the championship points, considering the massive gap that Felix Samoa's had coming into this race. But certainly going to lose some ground. And Nate Coliseo going to gain a decent amount of ground as well. May need to think about a championship battle as we round off the first half of the season 1 week from now at Jerez. So take a look at the replay of that fight right up to the line. Ethan Orr, he has found just about every single way in the book to come up second fiddle in these races, and you can see how close it was at that point in time. That's probably what, about 3 feet away from the line. It looks like Coliseo just barely has it from that camera angle. Every single other one, though, it looked like Ethan Orr was actually a little bit in front there. Brilliant stuff, though, between those two right at the very end. Going to double check this, looking at the iRacing information, which is slightly different to the other graphics that we do have, but Nate Coliseo did get the win. It's actually 16 thousandths at the end of it all, as we now... Here we go. It's the Drum Fest. It's the Wreck 'em Up Crash Fest at the end of this race, and barreling in. I'm not sure who that was, coming in like a missile. That was Nictolo. There's Parvin Ladar, major damage on your Spec 2 winner at the end of this race. I'm expecting somebody to come in and crash into our camera, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, we haven't had anybody take out a camera. Actually, you know what? I lie. It was a season or two ago. Somebody did take out our cameras, didn't they? I can't remember who it was there, but they hit something and kind of went into the camera, and then boop, the game just broke. So it has actually happened before, but not today. Let's see if we can get a bit of a better angle on you can see everybody staging here for the jump at the end. See if we can't get a better angle at it, but we'll wait for a couple people to get into the interview room here. Great race today at VIR for sure. Would really love to see the full layout get used at some point here, but VIR North layout providing some pretty good racing here today, Ron.
I would love to see them run on the internal Patriot course or the Grand layout as well, which I think is one of the longest tracks in all of American motorsports. It's like well over 4 miles, if my memory serves me correctly. That track is absolute insanity. We ran there a couple of seasons ago for the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors. I think those lap times were like 2.5 minutes long or something crazy like that. There's a jump from Hansen. There's a tire barrier for Hansen. He spins around like a top. Major damage on that car for sure. We're going to follow Michelle Lynn's perspective in all this as well. I think she had a wild ride in her own right. Let's see this. Going up the crest, she's gonna go hit the grass. Got a little bit squirrely down there, so not the greatest jump in the world, but bang into the wall. He's gonna go. Kurt Nunez had a moment in his own right as well. See, the problem is there's a big bump there on the inside that really starts to mess these racers up a little bit.
Yeah, not the best place to burn the cars down today, but I think we did a pretty good job of it nonetheless. Got to get the ritual in every race for sure. If you can burn it down, you might as well. It looks like we have some people in our interview room here. I'll let you grab one there, Ron, and we'll switch up the scenes here. See if we can't get some words from our drivers.
I think we'll quickly take a look at the race results here before we move off into the interviews. There's the unmistakable sound of metal snapping as Brian Szynski blew his motor up. One thing that I hope that iRacing never changes is the way the engines blow up, because as always, the
it sounds like a bag of wrenches hitting the ground.
Yeah,
for sure.
Crash, bang! It's like the things that you don't want to hear as your car is getting worked on at a repair shop. Nate Coliseo, though, is your race winner at the end of it all. Ethan Orr slotted to P2. Tortullo won in a photo finish with himself and Antonio Reese to snag your final podium spot in third. Antonio Reese wins it in the Masters category, finishing this race in P4 overall. Parvin Ladar will be classed in fifth, right in front of Michelle Lynn in sixth. Alan DeGassis in P7. Felix Samoa's in eighth. Kurt Nunez in ninth, with Jason Grider, who I don't think we talked about at all throughout that race, rounding out your top 10 in another close finish with himself and Jim Brewster finishes right behind.
Yeah, they had a pretty close race out there for sure. It's hard to keep an eye on everybody, but great racing out of both Jim Brewster and Jason Grider there today. Dan Trzynski and Brian Trzynski back-to-back in 12th and 13th place. Brian Hansen in 14th. Joshua Justice seeing a little bit of contrition out there today. He was up about 11 positions, and I think maybe he lost a couple there near the end, or at least one, but good drive out of him today. Nick Tullo in 16th. We have Chen in 17th, Jonathan Padgett in 18th, and if I can reach the button, we will continue to move forward with the results into 19th, Donald Stroud. In 20th, Brian Belinsky, first outing in a little while. I can tell he's kind of getting to grips with the car there, so hopefully we will see him again. Really easy mistake to make that he made early on in the race there. Hopefully he'll have a better one next time. Brian DeBello in 21st place. In 22nd, we have Scott Brayler. In 23rd, we have Rob Wright. Jorg Manny seeing some early on incident there with not involving Russell Telker, but right around the same incident as Russell Telker, and both of them going to be 13 and 18 laps down respectively, and rounding out the field.
So those are your results at the end of round number 5 of the Formula V Weekend Warriors here at VIR, and looks like we have some drivers waiting to have a chat with us here in the broadcast booth, and I think I'm going to have a chat with a man who came oh so close at the end of this race to getting his first win, but still has a pretty good record thus far this season. Ethan Orr, welcome here into the broadcast booth, man. P2 at the end of this race, but certainly gave it the old college try here at VIR. How was it out there?
Yeah, it was fun. After we dropped the rest of the pack, Nate just pit me right at the line.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that photo finish. You know, leading heading onto the start finish straightaway is always not the best spot to be in these draft heavy Formula Vs. It'll just make you feel like you're sitting still. But overall, a pretty solid race from you here today. Really seeing some intense battling all throughout the race as well. I want to ask you about how nuts it was out there behind the wheel.
Oh yeah, it really it gets your heart pumping. There's cars everywhere, especially when it was Felix came across the track. I thought I was dead there. I could see his rear axle coming towards me, but narrowly avoided death on that one.
I feel like there were moments for just about all of you racers up and down the grid that had near-death experiences in this race here. Never disappoints VIR. It's been a fixture of this schedule for quite some time, but we're heading off to a track that in the over a year now that I've gotten the opportunity to cover the Formula V Weekend Warriors, I have not seen Jerez in 1 week's time. That's going to be an intriguing one. I really do not know what to expect out of that race. Do you know what to expect out of that race?
To be honest, I haven't turned a single lap there, so it'll be a journey of discovery for both of us.
I know that track, I think in the entire time that I've been doing iRacing broadcasting, which stretches back to March of 2023, I think I've done all but, I think I've done like maybe 3 shows at most ever at Jerez. It's just a track that simply does not get a lot of use in this sim, but I think all the Weekend Warriors will be running there this upcoming weekend, and fingers crossed we'll have a good race here with the FVs in just 1 week's time. But Ethan, we'll let you give any thanks or shouts out before we let you go and celebrate that P2 and get some practice in for Jerez.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks to all the Weekend Warriors for coming out. You know, we would never race without all the guys, everyone who makes it happen. Michelle Lynn for the setups, and you guys for putting on the show, and everyone at home for watching.
Well, it's you and everybody else out there on the racetrack that puts on the show. I just got to scream over top of y'all's racing action, which I certainly won't turn that position down one bit. But Ethan, thank you for joining us here in the broadcast booth. Well done on the P2, and looking forward to seeing you hit the racetrack at Jerez in 1 week's time.
Yeah, thanks guys. Looking forward to it.
And that right there is Ethan Orr, your P2 finisher at the end of this race here at VIR. And Josh, got some more drivers looking to have a chat. I will let you take dibs on who you want to have a chat with.
Yeah, let's pull Parvinder Ladar down here, our Spec 2 winner for today, and see what he has to say. Parvinder, the Spec 2 win today. We were looking at you there. You got a win a few weeks ago. It looked like you had some speed today. Weren't quite able to pull out the podium, but got the win in Spec 2. Tell us how you did it.
Hi, Josh. Yeah, I think it was quite good. I had decent pace, but I think I got hit behind by Antonio, unfortunately, at one of the turn 1 laps. I think lap 3 or lap 4. And from then onwards, I had totally no speed on the straight, so I keep on losing positions. I was lucky to be able to hold on because Michelle was catching me really fast, and yeah, in a couple more laps, I think she would be pretty much behind me. Yeah, but overall, it's a pretty lonely race. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, a little bit of attrition there early on will definitely set you back in these races. Hard to catch up with that draft once the pack leaves you a little bit. But it looks like we're actually headed to Jerez next weekend. There, have you been to that track? Is that one that you've frequented a bunch, or is that going to be a bunch of practice between now and then?
I have never ever seen or heard or even watched on that track, so I got a lot of practicing to do. It's totally new to me. Just need to purchase the track and start putting in some laps next week if I can.
Right on. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of drivers in the same boat there as well. Parvinder getting some laps in, but really good drive today for sure. Nice and smooth out there. Is there anybody you'd like to thank?
Oh yeah, definitely. The league admins as usual, Stevie and the gang, Michelle, Jim, for hosting all the draft parties, and of course to Michelle especially for helping out with the setups and the tweaking each and every week. There's been a lot of help, and of course to you guys and the sponsor. Of course, do not forgetting Guido is not here today. We miss him, but yeah. To you guys as well as broadcasters and my favorite announcers.
Thank you for the kind words there, Parvinder, and we always look forward to seeing you on track, and we'll look forward to seeing you on track next week.
Thank you very much. Take care, guys.
Have a good week.
And oh boy, that was a bad voice
little
crack.
crack
And that
there.
right there was Parvinder Ladar. See that right there, folks, is why you have to
Whoops.
warm up your voice a little bit. And that right there was Parvinder Ladar, your winner. As I sound like a squeaky door, we're going to open up the door yet again to have a chat with our Masters winner at the end of this race, Antonio Reese, now joining us here in the broadcast booth. Antonio, welcome into the booth. Congratulations on the win in Masters at the end of this race. P5 overall. How did it talk us through that wacky race here at VIR?
Hello, Ron, and everybody. Yeah, it was very tough today. Today was, I think, one of the most difficult races for me on the V's. I don't know why, but this track is like a lot of draft, and then you have to keep trying to keep the car on the group, the front group, to get advantage of the faster guys, and then you can keep on the draft, and you can try to dig some distance for the guys behind, but it's very difficult because there is a lot of side-by-sides and late breakings and different lines. Everybody go different lines. It's a very traffic dealing kind of a race. So it was a little bit stress for me to deal with all of that, but it was okay. I did enjoy because I was almost disqualified because I have 10 incidents already. But at least I could finish the last 2 laps with no more incidents.
Hey, you're there at the end. You're able to take the checkered flag without any sort of disqualification, so you'll take that as a win. Another win in the Masters category here as well, so I'm sure you're going to keep that momentum rolling, or at least hope to keep that momentum rolling for the next round of the season at Jerez. In 1 week's time. That track is going to be used for, I think, all 3 of the Weekend Warriors leagues. So have you gotten the opportunity to run around there yet? And if so, what are your thoughts heading there?
Is not the race on the spec tomorrow, I think? Well, I don't have that track, so I have to skip that race. Anyway, I will do the other ones, but the Spanish track I don't own the track, so I will be out for that. Yeah.
It's a good one. It's a good track.
Yeah, it's a fun one. I can see both sides of the argument. You know, what's interesting, probably the most fun I've ever had running around Jerez is actually in the in a dirt oval car. It was the 410 wingless sprint car, drifting around that track like a madman and burning up some tires. That's been a track that doesn't necessarily like me, but I'm sure, Antonio, you'll be hopefully able to catch that broadcast here on Slow Motion Broadcasting in just 1 week's time for the next round of this season. But we'll let you give any thanks to Shats App before we let you go and celebrate this win.
Yeah, thanks to Steve, and congrats to Steve to write the book. Steve Ray, he write a book, so I think everybody knows. And then, yeah, for you guys on the broadcast, it's always a pleasure. It's always I'm blessed to have you doing that. And for all the viewers and the drivers and the sponsors, Guido, thank you very much. And yeah, that's all.
Well, thank you as well as always for joining us here in the commentary booth, Antonio. Congratulations on the win in the Masters class today, and looking forward to seeing you out there on the racetrack in the not too far off future.
Thank you, Ron. Take care.
And thank you as well, Antonio. That right there was Antonio Reese, your winner in the Masters category here today. And Josh, it caps off another fantastic round of the season. The first 5 races have been absolute barn burners, but Jerez, that is going to be venturing off into the unknown. And frankly, I feel like it'll be a bit of racing action similar to Lebanon, which is a track that we aren't actually going to be running at this season. I feel like the tracks are kind of similar in an odd way, so I think we may end up seeing a similar style of racing there potentially in 1 week's time.
Yeah, for sure. It's a pretty interesting track. Did some laps there the other night, and I like it. It's a good track. It's got some technical points and stuff like that. Feels like kind of an F1 track, and I dig it. I think it's going to be good. I believe we're going there in the SRFs tomorrow, so should be one of our first kind of pilotings out into into that world. But looking forward to it for sure, Rod.
Yeah, piloting off into the unknown in 1 week's time here in the Formula V Weekend Warriors. And hey, that's not all the action we can look forward to here on Slow Motion Broadcast. And we have just about got you covered week in and week out with some absolutely amazing racing action. You can see on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, you can catch the action from the SRG F4 series in the case of Tuesday nights, and the SRG F3 championship in the case of Wednesday nights. Of course, the weekends, we've got you booked with the Formula V Weekend Warriors running on Saturdays. On Sunday, you can see the action from the FF Weekend Warriors. That'll be a fun race to look forward to here coming up tomorrow, along with the Spec Racer Fords running at Jerez. And as per usual, you can see all of that action from XSLR here on SMB as well. A couple more races left to go from those championships as well. But we also have a nice little bit of racing action to look forward to. Some multi-class sports car racing action from the United Sim Racing Association, the sizzling Sebring 180. That'll be a fantastic 3-hour-long endurance race. You can see GT3s and LMP2 cars running around there. I adore the LMP2. It was one of my first prototype loves when it comes to iRacing, and you can see all of that action will be broadcasted here on Slow Motion Broadcasting on the evening of August the 9th, coming up in a couple of weeks' time. So that's the action to look forward to. A little bit farther up the road here on SMB, of course, you saw a few moments ago the action from the Weekend Warriors is upcoming Sunday. Tomorrow, you'll be able to see the FFs running at Road Atlanta, the Spec Racer Fords running at Jerez, SRG F4 will be at Indy, and SRG F3 will be at Portimao. And coming up later on this evening as well, we've got the action from Week 5 for Ron's Race Nights. I'll be covering the action from the Radical Esports Cup at Thruxton. I actually do those broadcasts on the official iRacing channel, and interestingly, that's how Josh and I both got our start when it comes to iRacing broadcasting. So those SR10s always put on some really good racing, and fingers crossed I'll be able to see all of you tuning into that broadcast a little bit later on this evening at 9 p.m. Eastern time. But as for this broadcast here for week number 5 of the Formula V Weekend Warriors at VIR, that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Maunz, and Josh Wilkie working the comms and the cams with me on today's broadcast, I say thank you all so very much for tuning into this broadcast here on Slow Motion Broadcasting today, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future.